So the first award that we're going to present today is actually one in which we're going to ask people who are here who are recipients of this award. In just a moment, I'm going to ask you just to stand up. We have an award which I find to be really fun to give out at our university, and that is for a practitioner who really is exhibiting excellence in educational leadership preparation. That could be someone who's a superintendent who's been particularly supportive of your program. It could be one of your mentors or advocates that you're working with, or others. So in each day, or in each of our year's awards, if you are one of the people who has been brought to the convention as a UCEA Excellence in Educational Leadership Awardee, would you please stand up and be recognized? Thank you so much. Those awardees are always featured very prominently in our UCA review, and it's an opportunity for each university to recognize excellence in their areas. At this time, I would like to introduce someone who doesn't need introduction, and that's Michelle Young, who's going to come up, and she is going to be presenting 2 additional awards. So, Dr. Michelle Young.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're enjoying your lunch. It's really a wonderful tradition that we've started here, having the awards luncheon. It's a terrific way to gather together members of the UCA community and celebrate all of the different contributions that they have made to this organization and the field in general. And it's my pleasure to have an opportunity to present Dr. Julian Vasquez-Heilig with the UCA Distinguished Service Award. This award was established about 10 years ago to recognize UCA citizens who contribute significant and selfless ways to the consortium. And as a result, it's always a distinct pleasure to be able to recognize those individuals here at the luncheon. I first met Dr. Heilig when he joined the University of Texas at Austin as a newly minted assistant professor. He enthusiastically took on the role of UCEA Associate Director for Program Centers and brought new ideas and energy. One of my favorite projects that he initiated as part of the Associate Director of Program Centers was the UCEA Graduate Student Summer Fellowships. This allows graduate students to spend some of their summer at one of our program centers, and they are funded to do this. And this has multiple positive results. First of all, we enhance the capacity of our program centers. We provide an opportunity for graduate students to increase their network, and they get some really terrific experience and great work done. That's just one example of many that of the different initiatives that Julian brought to this program area. As a brand new assistant professor, he continued to work for UCEA in this capacity, not just through the time that we were at the University of Texas, but also the first 2 years of our term at University of Virginia, while we sought to fill the role with a new associate director, and just recently named Jason Richardson to this position. But we want to thank Julian for his incredible dedication and service to UCA. So Julian, would you come up here?
First, Jason, congratulations and condolences on your new position. Just really want to quickly, maybe I can start a 30-second tradition, which is roast yourself, because this job is actually the You're Fired award. When I left the University of Texas for Cal State, the first question that Michelle asked me was, is Cal State Sacramento a UCA institution? I said, no. Michelle, well, that's good because you've been in this job 7 years, too long. So, that's not true. So I'm really glad and proud to have worked with Michelle over the years, and also work with all the students who are UCA scholars. And this is an incredible network of friends, and I look forward to seeing you each and every year for the next 40 years. Thank you.
because UCEA is a nonprofit organization made up of volunteers, the service of individuals like Dr. Heilig is sincerely appreciated. The next award is actually not one that I'm presenting. Each spring at AERA, Division A generously allows us some time on their agenda to be able to present the EAQ Best Paper Award, and it's named after William J. Davis, who was a significant scholar who passed away at a very early age, but had made some significant contributions to scholarship, and the award was named in his memory. And this year, we presented this award to a paper titled Negotiating Site-Based Management and Expanding Teacher Decision-Making, a case study of 6 urban schools. This piece focused on 6 schools that were involved in an initiative called Together Initiative, which was designed to increase principal autonomy and teacher decision-making authority, and they studied its implementation and the sense-making around the policy. And the winners were, the authors winners were Anicia Mayer, Morgan Donaldson, Kimberly LeChester, Angela Welton, and Casey Cobb, and I believe that they are sitting in the back table, and we just want to congratulate them once again. Thank you.
The next award that we are presenting is the Edwin M. Bridges Award. And this award honors the lifelong contributions that Dr. Bridges made to the field, and is awarded annually for original, outstanding work in the area of research and/or development that contributes to our knowledge and understanding of how best to prepare and support future generations of educational leaders. And so I would like to invite at this time Jacqueline Wilson to come up and join me and present this award.
Good afternoon. The Edwin M. Bridges Award is given by UCEA annually to recognize an individual for original, outstanding work in the area of research and development that contributes to our knowledge and understanding of how best to prepare and support future generations of educational leaders. The award recognizes contributions to pre-service preparation as well as continuing professional development aimed at school leaders. It is my honor to present this award to my friend and colleague, Dr. Joseph Murphy. I have had the opportunity to work with and be mentored by Dr. Joseph Murphy for the past 14 years. As we worked with the Delaware Department of Education, State Board of Education, Delaware's 3 institutions of higher education, policy leaders, and school district leaders to develop a cohesive leadership system for our state that included a principal evaluation system, pre-service preparation programs, a licensure and certification system, and professional development for school leaders aligned to the national ISLIC standards. This work in Delaware became a model for other states as recognized by a RAND report on cohesive leadership systems. Most recently, I've had the honor of working with Joe as the co-chair of the ISLIC Refresh Committee. Joe's colleagues also recognize the significance his research and contributions have had on the field. Philip Hallinger wrote, "I believe Professor Murphy's contributions to the field exemplify the spirit of the Bridges Award, advancing the field through critical inquiry applied to the realities of school leadership preparation and practice." He also wrote, "The evolution of Professor Murphy's scholarship demonstrates a similar willingness to Professor Bridges, not only to step back and critique, but to also get his hands dirty." And from someone who's worked very closely with Joe, let me tell you, his hands have been dirty a lot. Carol Shanksheff wrote, Joe keeps his focus on making schools better and improving the learning conditions of both students and those employed in schools. He has been strong in his support for what was once called practitioner research and is now recognized as the primary responsibilities of researchers in our field. 15 single or co-authored books, 12 edited books, 2 monographs, 176 or more articles, 2 essay reviews, 2 national reports, 10 commissioned papers, 9 occasional papers, and 62 book chapters. Joe's work has changed the expectations of what departments of educational administration should do. Karen Peterson wrote, Dr. Murphy's national influence is far-reaching. In addition to being one of the authors of the Val Ed Assessment, he has worked with multiple state departments and districts throughout the country on principal evaluation. He has provided leadership in the development and revisions to the ISLIC standards. This work alone has an immeasurable impact on the field. And finally, Terry Orr wrote, he has influenced me personally in modeling how to balance research, scholarship, and teaching while maintaining close working relationships with state and local education leaders. He underscores learning from and with the leadership field to keep ideas fresh, challenge assumptions, and promote solutions. His work is pragmatic, generating usable knowledge and approaches. On behalf of UCA and educators, practitioners like myself, a former principal, Department of Education director, and someone who trains principals every single day, and superintendents, it is my honor to present you with the Edward M. Bridges Award. Thank you for your commitment to improving standards, training, and working conditions for school leaders. Your work has had a tremendous impact on the way we are prepared for our jobs, how we work with teachers, children, and families, and how we are evaluated. Your influence on the profession has been profound.
Thank you. Can you get your picture after I speak first? Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to UCA for this award, and I also wanted to say thank you to all the students I've had a chance to work with over the years who've made this work possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. The next award that we will be recognizing is the UCEA Master Professor Award. And the UCEA Master Professor Award is given to an individual faculty member whose record as a professor is so distinguished that the UCA must recognize this individual. It's to recognize someone who has a sustained record as an outstanding teacher, exhibited educational innovation in the classroom, and the extension of educational opportunities to an ever wider group of students in educational leadership and administration programs. Presenting this award is Joan P. Shapiro.
Of course. Good to see you. Nice to see you. Okay. Hello. I would like to begin this introduction of Steve Gross with 2 quotes. The first is from a colleague, and the second from a student. It will give you an idea of what the reviewers thought of him. Steve is an intentional colleague and mentor. He really listens. He never excludes. He always includes. He is genuine in his thoughts, speech, writing, and deeds. Steve personifies integrity. He is generous with his ideas, praise, and wisdom. That's from Dr. Marla Israel. From a student, I believe that Dr. Gross's work, both in the classroom and through his research and publications, has contributed to the advancement of education. His tutelage has allowed me and countless other students an opportunity to see a democratic, ethical, educational leader firsthand. And that's from Dr. Ryan Giving, who is a former doctoral student. I believe that Steve well deserves the UCA Master Professor Award. In the realm of teaching, Steve is absolutely outstanding. Not only are his student evaluations very high, but also colleagues who have taught with him speak with laudatory terms about his presentations. I know firsthand, as I've invited Steve to my ethics class to teach turbulence theory, which he has developed. Each time he's visited us, he is well prepared and really listens and responds effectively to the students. Not only does he teach very well, but he also designs very exciting curricula. Most recently, Steve developed a course entitled Profiles of Democratic Ethical Leaders. It deals with values and seeks to understand how national and international leaders have handled crisis situations. Turning to his scholarship, of late, Steve has tended to write books focusing on educational leadership. His most recent books includes Leadership Mentoring. He co-authored a book with me called Ethical Educational Leadership in Turbulent Times. He loves the title, Turbulent Times. Now, and are we living in turbulent times? Now in its second edition and published last year, and he's co-edited a major work with Chris Branson entitled The Handbook of Ethical Educational Leadership, published by Routledge. And now, as well, we're working on a book on the New Deal. Although he has been writing books, Steve has not ignored refereed journals or edited books. Steve has also given keynotes at the annual John Dewey Memorial Lecture at ASCD and at UCA's Value and Leadership Conference in Canada just this fall. He's gained considerable national and international prominence for the concept of turbulence theory and received the Willower Award for Outstanding Scholarship this academic year. And in 2012, he was listed on the roster for Fulbright Scholars in the Fulbright Specialist Program. Turning to service, now remember, this is an all-encompassing award. In the leadership roles that Steve has assumed, he does not function in a heroic capacity. Remember that. Instead, he facilitates and encourages others to work together to achieve positive ends. He did so when he served as chair of the Collegial Assembly at Temple's College of Education. At a national and international level, Steve has created a movement called the New Deal, Democratic, Ethical, Educational Leadership. This movement was co-founded by Steve and myself at Temple, and it now includes over 200 colleagues and practitioners from the US and beyond. The New Deal is now part of a larger international group, the UCA Consortium for the Study of Leadership and Ethics in Education. The New Deal provides a place for faculty and graduate students to present their work at conferences at Temple each year. It also focuses on mentorship and curriculum development. It moves away from high-stakes testing and accountability and instead emphasizes social justice and social responsibility. Turning quickly to public service, Steve participated in educational policy in the home state of Vermont. During a recent sabbatical year, he was extremely active, developing policy briefs and speaking before the Vermont legislature on education. He has showed his strong involvement in this area by helping very much on the UCA Convention's Committee of Day on the Hill. He takes public service seriously. By now, based on his outstanding accomplishments, it should be clear that Dr. Stephen J. Gross truly deserves the UCA Master Professor Award.
I think after that, any decent person would just say thank you and be seated. So excuse me if I failed that test. Before anything, I want to thank my wife, Jean, for just believing in me, Joan for nominating me, and the friends and colleagues who wrote such kind letters of support. Thank you so much. But I do have a message I'd like to share with all of you. Please don't be afraid of your new ideas. They are fragile at first, I know, but let me tell you the story of what happened when I shared one new idea with my great colleague Joan Shapiro back in 2004. The New Deal came from our frustration over hyper-testing, distrust of teachers, and the privatization movement in education. Later that year at the Values and Leadership Conference, Joan and I thought we had a chance to find allies, so we asked for a bit of time with Paul Begley and Michelle Young. Before we met, I saw Joan became quite agitated. I asked what was the matter, and she said that we needed a catchy name. She said that since I was deeply influenced by Eleanor Roosevelt and Franklin Roosevelt, that something with them in mind would do for a name. And then she said, the trouble, Steve, is I cannot make it work. And I said, what does that mean? The New Deal, it just doesn't work. All right, the D is for democracy, the E is for ethics, and the L is for leadership. But I just can't make the A work. So what are we going to do? I was stumped, and then I said, Joan, forget the A. We'll just spell it D-E-E-L. Let the second E stand for leadership, democratic, ethical, educational leadership. But it's misspelled, she said. I thought about that, and I smiled, and I said, look, we're educators. The critics think so little of us that they're expecting us to make spelling mistakes. It's going to be all right, and it was. Michelle and Paul listened and supported us. Doors opened up, and at the next UCEA convention, Michelle connected us with Michael Dantley, who is just elected president, and his convention team of Mark Gooden and Judy Alston. They were so welcoming, I was amazed. At the convention, we introduced the New Deal, and again we found support. This fragile new idea was starting to take root. Winter strategy sessions followed, and Paul Begley suggested that we have a conference. So we did. We're having our 7th New Deal conference, May 1st and 2nd at Temple this coming spring, and I hope you'll consider joining us there. Courses were invented. A growing body of scholarship has come from the contributions of people around the world, many of whom are with us right here in this room. What makes me happiest, though, is the sight of so many young scholars joining us to write together, to meet together, to build community together. We are intergenerational and we are international. I think what appeals about our work is our shared vision. We do believe in internal responsibility trumps accountability, that educators need to be democratic actors who can work with the turbulence around them, that democracy, social justice, and school reform are mutually inclusive, that educators must have a deep understanding of ethical decision-making, and finally, that our work is a calling, not merely a job. Right? Yeah, do that. These are not ethereal platitudes. They are as concrete as the exemplars we use in our teaching and our scholarship. Next year, we will publish a book based on these accounts. Several of the chapter writers are right here at UCEA, and we appreciate Heather Jarrow and Rutledge for her support and guidance. The New Deal is a work in progress. We know we have a long way to go. There are still too much top-down accountability. We still do not have social justice and responsibility. Democracy itself is still threatened. But the pendulum is starting to shift. Our growing New Deal community is part of a much larger tapestry of like-minded groups, learning how to change our field through scholarship, teaching, and service in our home institutions and beyond. And the wide world is starting to sit up and take notice. Policies that once seemed frozen in icy rigidity now seem open for discussion and debate. It's about time. That's what happened to our new idea. The secret was trusting ourselves and those around us, moving beyond isolation towards community. In our context, it meant building upon our UCEA network. So please, don't be afraid of your new ideas. I'm so grateful to this organization, I cannot tell you how much. I'm so touched by this award, I cannot tell you how much. Thank you seems hardly enough, but thank you.
Thanks very much, Steve. The next award that we are recognizing today is the J.D. Scribner Mentoring Award. And this award honors someone in educational leadership who really takes the time to mentor their graduate students to become educational researchers, and also really takes the time and devotes the energy needed to support junior faculty in their efforts to move up along the line of tenure. Today, presenting this award, we have Andrea Rohr.
Good afternoon. I know that many of you are reaching that sugar high as you have your dessert. So while you're in that euphoric state, I'd like to invite you for a moment to consider the person who has given you their shoulder to lean on. Consider the one that has given you guidance to learn from, the time to process, and even on rare occurrences, that swift kick in your aspirations to move you beyond the confines of a difficult situation. In part, whether this person you are considering is a mentor or a friend, or both, they likely possess some of the qualities that today's recipient of the J.D. Scribner Mentor Award, Catherine Lugg, reflects. This award, which is appropriately named after one of our field's preeminent mentors, J.D. Scribner, as Ann mentioned, is given to a faculty member who's made substantive contributions to the field through mentoring. Being a bit of a policy enthusiast myself, I was captured by my first interaction with Catherine. She was giving a roundtable discussion on her then new work on kitsch, from education to public policy. That day at AERA in 1998, I didn't realize that this moment was the beginning of a long period of mentoring, friendship, love, and compassion. She is intertwined in my personal and professional life, from births to near-death and death experiences, from professional victories to absolute professional FUBAR moments, and from laughter to laughter through tears. As Gerardo Lopez captured, she saw me grow up, and she still finds the time to check in with others. This is a sign of true mentorship and genuine support. So it seems appropriate that along with my many colleagues, including Joanne Marshall, who's sitting back here, and Latish Reed, we led the nomination with many of our colleagues to support Catherine Lugg for the Scribner Award. Catherine has distinguished herself as an authentic, caring mentor, and not just for a few of us. Her letters of nomination demonstrate the respect, admiration, and gratitude of peers, colleagues, and students alike. She's given her time, energy, and support selflessly. Her heart and intentions are pure and always, always without regard for what she will or could gain. As Joanne Marshall said, I admire her greatly as a scholar and as a person. She shines. She inspires me in her work and in her collegiality, and as I continue in this profession, I hope to follow her example. And Latish Reed added, her scholarship has transformed my thinking. Her professional mentorship has helped shape my career, and her personal encouragement has helped me face many challenges as an academic living with a chronic illness. In fact, Catherine is known for her intellectual engagement. As many of you have heard Catherine say, and we get paid to do this work. Kathleen Brown explained, every time I see Catherine at a conference or chat with her by phone or email, she always questions, prods, probes, motivates, and encourages me to think critically, to explore deeply, and to act proactively according to my convictions. Melina Robinson added, she is brilliant in an unassuming way, and she never comes across as an elitist, untouchable intellectual. As a mentor, she encourages critical thinking and intense research by example. She expects and inspires you to know your research inside and out because she knows her research inside and out. Catherine Marshall further reflected on the important role of Catherine in the field. Any grad student or fledgling assistant professor at any point in time who has had a chance to be near Catherine has no doubt been surprised and delighted to see that scholars can have such fun. Her irreverent repertoire might encourage them, as it has me, to be more playful in our lives and work. She shows that such behavior is in no way shirking the serious business of maintaining quality work that always challenges us to make schools better. And Dominique Johnson, a previous student mentored by Catherine, echoed this sentiment and added another dimension. Dominique noted, I wanted to close my letter with an uncomfortable truth. We need Dr. Lugg and people like her in academia if young queer scholars are to even have a chance of surviving the leaky pipeline to tenure. Academia can still be a sexist, racist, and homophobic space, and this can cause real hardship for young LGBTQ scholars and scholars of color. Dr. Lugg's work with younger scholars is such an important part of combating the obstacles that still exist. Catherine generally begins or ends her emails, if you've received one, with the phrase, "I hope life is treating you gently." It seems that even when our professional or our personal life may not comply with this sentiment, Catherine's presence in our lives makes sure that we are comforted, filled with hope, and inspired. For this, Catherine, we thank you. We appreciate that Mary, your wife, who's here with us today, has so generously understood our time with you. And importantly, we honor you. Please join me in congratulating Catherine Lugg as this year's recipient of the J.D. Scribner Mentoring Award.
This is like droppable and breakable. Okay. Wow. To the UCEA Executive Committee and Executive Director, Michelle Young, to the 18 extraordinarily generous colleagues who wrote stunning letters of support, to especially Andrea Rohr, Latish Reed, and Joanne Marshall, who led this effort, to my senior colleagues of UCEA, and to J.D. Scribner, who is the ultimate mentor. Quite simply, thank you. Receiving the Scribner Award for mentoring has been the most awe-inspiring and humbling experience of my life. I want to take a minute to mention how important it's been to my own career to have great mentors, most importantly, the late Bill Boyd. I met Bill in the fall of 1991 when I took his state and federal politics of education class. I absolutely loved it. From that term onward, Bill was always supportive, from finding me, for finding money for me when he realized I was self-funded. That's such a bad idea, don't do that. To including me on research and writing projects, to sharing all manner of political gossip and jokes. Loved gossip. For example, a few days before he died, Bill sent me a very funny joke about Sarah Palin. Bill always appreciated the work, or approached the work with an infectious level of joy, and I miss him terribly. I also want to briefly address the question of why mentor? As Bill showed me, you can never have too many intellectual playmates. If you want a front row seat to see where our intellectual field is going, there is no better way than to serve as a mentor. I've had the great privilege to work with wonderful young scholars, from Rutgers to UCEA and beyond. UCEA in particular, thanks to its strong organizational commitment to mentoring, is ultimately dedicated to what Hannah Arendt called for, to make the world fit for human habitation. My final thank you is to my wife, Mary, D.On., who continues to listen to me even when I yell at the television set, threatening to out so many closeted public figures. Oh, come on. Didn't think you'd get that. Who endures my happy and incessant early morning chatter, and this is every morning, and who still loves me enough, though I refuse to give up that scary word, queer. Thank you for everything.
think I could have made a run with that award, but Kathy would have caught me. Our next award is the Jack A. Culbertson Award, established in 1982 in honor of UCEA's first-time full-time executive director who retired in 1981 after 22 years of service. While an impressive scholar himself, he took particularly interest in the scholarly endeavors of junior faculty and recognized their work in the future of the profession and the organization. The award is presented annually to an outstanding junior professor of educational administration in recognition of his or her significant contributions to the field of educational leadership. The award this year is presented by Stephen Gross.
I'm so pleased to present this year's Jack A. Culbertson Award to Dr. Holly Mackey. I've been impressed with Holly's work for a long time, and I believe she is truly deserving of this honor. When I asked Holly to sum up her greatest achievements to date, she said, "I am most proud of the fact that I have worked diligently to bring American Indian educational leadership into the mainstream of educational leadership." The facts about American Indian poverty being roughly twice the national rate and the attendant consequences for school leaders are well known, and it is to Dr. Mackey's credit that she has devoted herself to this cause. Recognizing her work this year, when our annual convention theme is Righting Civil Wrongs, Education for Racial Justice and Racial Rights, is particularly appropriate in my opinion. Holly has already made a powerful contribution through her scholarship, teaching, and service. She has written over 15 articles and book chapters that analyze such important topics as mentoring, educating American Indian students, understanding and supporting the experiences of American Indian scholars, and reporting on restorative justice models. She has delivered over 24 conference presentations in the past 4 years. These include exploring American Indian policy issues, the state of American Indian education in Oklahoma, and an invited keynote address at the American Indian Caucus. Her service work is equally impressive. She currently sits on the advisory panel of the South Central Indian Education Advisory Committee. She is also a Curriculum Development Committee member for Oklahoma Indian Education for All, and she has been nominated to sit on the National Advisory Council on Indian Education through the White House Initiative on American Indian and Alaska Native Education. These facts are impressive, but they don't really capture the heart and dedication she shows in her work. I was at a board meeting in 2012 when Holly and her colleagues made their presentation to host the 2013 Values and Leadership Conference at the University of Oklahoma. Holly's leadership and preparation were astounding. The board was deeply impressed, and we soon voted to support that proposal. Fast forward to last September in Oklahoma City. From the moment the 18th Values and Leadership Conference started to its conclusion, everyone could see the pains to which Holly and her team went to make certain our days together would be meaningful. But more than that, we were honored by being introduced to American Indian culture in a way that was respectful, truthful, and eloquent. Once more, Holly's leadership was evident. We left the conference knowing that we had gained new and profound insights and that we had expanded our community in a critical way. Here's some quotes from some of the wonderful letters of support given to Holly. Paul Begley said, "From our first encounter, I've been impressed with Professor Mackey's inquiring mind, entrepreneurial spirit, and her passion for social justice issues." Jatane Jean-Marie said, "She has worked diligently to bring American Indian educational leadership into the mainstream of educational leadership conversations through developing partnerships, reaching out to indigenous peoples across the country, and develop a practitioner working network." Susan Faircloth said, "What she knows better than most is that the work she and others like her are doing has the potential to shape not only the field of Indian education, but the way in which we see larger fields of leadership and administration and engage such issues as indigeneity, equity, social justice, and ethical practice, and much more." Elizabeth Murakami said, "I consider Dr. Holly Mackey one of the most able, up-and-coming scholars in the nation. She is caring, responsive, and active in all aspects of the profession and the field of educational leadership." I think I will close with this quote because it summarizes everything from Tony Normore. "Holly is well known for her willingness to come to the aid of her students and her colleagues in need and support. She builds personal and professional relationships, along with networking and coalition building with her peers. She is kind, generous, socially mature. I'm not done, there's more. Emotionally intelligent, nurturing, community and service-oriented, respectful of people and processes, a compassionate teacher and a leader who always finds time to help a colleague and a student no matter what deadlines confront her. She will constantly be a positive moral force in any educational setting as a whole, a remarkable quality in learning institutions that demand so much from their constituents. Congratulations, Holly, for receiving this year's Culbertson Award. Well done. Whatever you want, sure.
They said it's the rules.
Okay. Where's the camera?
Got it?
Okay. Okay.
For those of you who don't know, I'm also extremely clumsy, so I'm going to just leave that right there. I was just joking about Catherine's, and I would have dropped it had I been carrying it. And also, for those of you who do know me, every time I have to speak publicly, I lose my voice. I don't know why, but it happens. So, I'm not entirely sure what to say. Of course, thanking Jack Culbertson for the beginning of this organization and taking us to where we are today is something that should be noted. But I don't necessarily think that any sort of early career award has anything to do with the work of the scholar who's winning the award. And it has a whole lot more to do with the people who have supported that scholar. To that end, I would like to thank some of my ancestors. Most of them have passed, and a few have remained. Most of you would probably know my grandmother, Henrietta Mann. I think she just spoke at Denver. And she's really my rock and my support in everything that I do. And passing all of my work and all of my ideas through there, through her lens is very, very valuable. I can't talk, I'm really sorry. More importantly, it's understanding that with the Indian community, and I'm sure some of you in here are, we don't necessarily do our work for any sort of public good of education or for any sort of personal gain. It's very much about community. And I met a graduate student yesterday who is doing dissertation work on this, and it was beautiful the way that she summed it up. So I would really like to just thank all of you, really, who have supported me in this. Paul Begley, of course. I wasn't supposed to go to grad school. I was on campus at Penn State for something entirely different, and I was being interviewed, and they told me that I didn't sound like an Indian, and I certainly didn't look like an Indian, and so they asked me to modify slightly before they put me on camera with the American Indian Housing Initiative, and I was so mad, and I happened to run into Paul, didn't even know who he was, and I'm like, what is wrong with you people in this state? I'm like, what's going on? He says, well, I don't know, I'm Canadian. I'm not. But, so then I decided I better go to grad school. And so, but I've been supported by so many people in this room, and I can't even see that well. Like Tara and Andrea's leadership over the years in UCEA has been amazing. And Catherine, you'd never even believe how mentors work. Like Catherine's posts on Facebook sometimes keep me from just completely blowing up at my kids by the time I get home at the end of the day. And I'm trying to see Tara and Michelle has been such a force of support, and to come with Joe and where did he go? Stephen has been one of the people who I've relied on so much over the years. And then to take it to another level, I'm about out of time, right? Yeah, I didn't write a speech. Right. I'm Indian, of course it is. Right. Get it? Like Indian time? Huh? Well, okay. You'll get it. You'll find I'm late for everything. To be standing here, more importantly, in all seriousness, I come from a very small band from the Northern Cheyenne, and our tribe today has approximately 10,000 people. My band has about 2,000 people, and I'm one of the handful of those people who actually have PhDs. So our family line comes from those who survived at the Battle of Little Bighorn and then moved on to survive at the Sand Creek Massacre, which was only 30, and then managed to survive at Wounded Knee, the first one, not Russell Means' version of it, right? So, thank you. I know some of you were around in the 70s and know all about AIM, right? But to know that I've come from 30 people into this world here, where none of us should really have made it to this point, and certainly none of us should be standing in a room full of people who are so dedicated and so accomplished as you. I don't even know where to begin to say thank you. So to that, thank you, all of you.
I know, I'm pretty clumsy too. I'm not sure how people are trusting me with their awards. The next award goes to the best article in JRLE and will be presented by Gordon Gates.
Good afternoon. I am pleased to present this award for JRLE's Best Article in 2013. Before I do so, I want to share both Gail Furman's and Michelle's Akahosavar's regret in not being able to be here. I also wish to thank the selection committee for their service. William Black, Daniel Riaz-Guerra, Megan Shanmoran, and Angeli Welton. JRLE's Best Article in 2013 award is Change in University-Based Programs of Educational Leadership, How Responsive Have Programs Been, by Philip Roby and Scott Bauer. The committee felt that Roby and Bauer's contribution was solidly designed, clearly and compellingly written, and importantly provides a significant response to critics of university-based preparation programs. This article offers inquiry beyond a particular program and developed a design that allowed for more powerful understanding of phenomena across university-based preparation programs. In doing so, it examines answers to the consistent challenge and questioning of educational leadership development programs and the profession itself. The study identifies key program redesign, incorporation of quality features, as well as illustrates how policies restructure the field of educational leadership preparation. Thank you.
Apparently taking the picture is the hardest part of this. I was convinced at the very outset that there was a big mistake, and when I looked at the folks who are being celebrated here today, I'm more convinced that there's a mistake. But just in case, I'd like to thank Phil. As a doctoral student, he wasn't nearly the pain in the behind that I told him he was all the way through. And this was his dissertation research. And most of all, I'd like to thank all of you. You are the subjects of this research. And if we played a very, very small part in demonstrating to policymakers that we aren't quite as lazy and inept as they think we are, all the more power to us. Thank you.
The Paula Silver Case Award was instituted in 1999 to memorialize the life and work of Paula Silver, UCEA Associate Director and President-elect. She made significant contributions to our program through excellence in scholarship, advocacy of women, and an inspired understanding of praxis. The award goes to the most outstanding case published during the last volume of the UCEA Journal of Cases in Educational Leadership, and the award's presented by Bill Black.
Good afternoon. First, it gives us great pleasure to announce, I say us because we are co-edited, a team of co-editors, Von Zell Augusto and Zorka Caranja. And it gives us great pleasure to announce that Sally J. Cepeda and Robert Stewart Mayers won the Paula Silver Outstanding Case Award for their case, Communication and Trust, Change at the Onset of Appointment to the Superintendency. I want to share some of the notes from the awards committee, who I also want to thank for their work, Carol Karpinski, Lisa Bass, and, no surprise, Catherine Lugg. And the committee noted that they reviewed many outstanding cases, which is a terrific indicator of the overall health of the journal. But Cepeda and Meyer's case was remarkable for its incredibly detailed teaching notes. Besides building a credible, believable, and highly readable case, the author's teaching notes, including the many embedded activities, were remarkably strong. An instructor could easily use the article in many ways in class. The case would be particularly helpful to an audience of aspiring administrators. Cepeda and Mayers develop a case around a very common issue, yet one that challenges many districts beyond their abilities. Many U.S. school districts must function in various states of dysfunction as a result of the mistrust and fear that is triggered as changes are enforced. Changes in staffing and administration are almost always disruptive to districts, as policies negatively shape perceptions and actions. Cepeda and Mayers highlight these complexities often brought about as change is introduced, a situation not very different from the reality faced by many current school administrators. The use of current demographic trends in the development of the case makes it more relatable to pre-service administrators. Poverty, the shifting demographics, the nature of bedroom community are all contemporary issues with which many school administrators must contend. Cepeda and Mayer's Communication and Trust is a professional development tool as it reminds school leaders of what is needed to make inroads when breaches seem impassable. Communication and trust are the key elements, but these are often taken for granted in organizations, including school districts. This case reminds school leaders of the core competencies and beliefs required to prevail in a time when broken communication and trust are more the norm than the exception. It teaches skills that can aid in developing aspiring school leaders into competent 21st century public school administrators. Congratulations to Sally Cepeda and Robert Stewart Mayers.
When I first read Bill's email in September, I had to read it 2 more times to make sure I was seeing what I was really seeing on my computer screen. I immediately picked up the phone and I called Sally and I said, "Did you see that?" And she goes, "Wow." And today tells me just how big of a wow this really, really is. To see my name on the same program with a slate of such eminent and accomplished scholars is indeed beyond humbling. I'm very grateful to you all, to Bill. I'll learn to use one of these days. To Bill and the committee for their acknowledgement of our work. To the reviewers whose comments were so key to making our case the best that it could be. I'm sorry that Sally couldn't be here today, but I feel compelled to say thank you to her. She has been a loyal friend, a tremendous mentor to me, and a wonderful co-writer, and I'm deeply grateful for all that I have learned from her. I remember in 2005, I was in Athens, Georgia for another conference when Sally was notified that she was the first recipient of the UCEA Master Professor Award. And she swore me to secrecy
She did not want anybody at this other conference to know because that's just the way she is. It is the only time I have ever gone against her expressed wishes. And at the conference the next day, I said, oh, by the way, when I got up to do my presentation, I said, I have an announcement. If looks could kill, I would not be here today. But I am indeed grateful to her for all that I have learned from her. She is indeed a mentor's mentor. Thank you.
The Roald F. Campbell Lifetime Achievement Award was instituted in 1992 to recognize senior professors in the fields of educational administration whose professional lives had been characterized by extraordinary commitment, excellence, leadership, productivity, generosity, and service. At the same time, the award celebrates the remarkable pioneering life of Roald F. Campbell, whose distinguished career spanned many years and exemplified these characteristics. This award is presented by Joe Morphy.
Thank you. This is a special time. My honor to acknowledge this year's winner, Philip Hallinger. I would say it is conservatively safe to say that Phil is one of the 2 or 3 leading scholars in the area of school leadership and school improvement in the world, which is a pretty distinguished place to occupy. The magnitude of his contribution to leadership and improvement, organizational change is quite overwhelming, and I'll talk about that in a second as well. He's the only person I think I know who actually has been a pioneer in 5 distinct areas of our profession, all of which he is the top person. So it's pretty amazing pinnacle to find himself on. He's certainly one of the founders of the entire Effective Schools instructional leadership movement back in the early 80s, late 70s, and he stayed on top of that mountain for 30 plus years now. He is, along with his mentor and colleague Ed Bridges, he was the person or team that brought the whole notion of authentic learning and realistic opportunities through problem-based learning to school administration, and again remains at the top of the field in that area. He is, probably some of you would know it less, but he's certainly one of the handful of leading international educational leadership scholars. He's spent his last 25, 30 years actually overseas, living overseas, and his fingerprints are all over Southeast Asia in many places. The one that he doesn't take credit for yet, but I want to put it on the table, is his 4th area. Phil's new line of work on conducting qualitative research reviews is going to go down as a singular contribution. I went to the first graduate student session this morning at 8 o'clock, and sure enough, one of the presenters said, and I used Phil Hallinger's qualitative, he's got articles in EAQ and JEA and other places. It really is a profound contribution. And then finally, his work on leader effects has been amazing. His work is particularly, Phil and Ron Heck have done just done the path-breaking work for us to begin to see the modulation of leader effects over time and through the mediating variables in which all that stuff travels. So that's a pretty impressive set of major areas to be on the top of the mountain, and so that's pretty incredible. Now, I spoke about the magnitude. You know, at the end of the day, articles and book chapters and those things are intermediate variables. They're not outcomes. And when you want to look at outcomes, you look at productivity of scholarship. And if you look at Phil, there are very few of us who run around in this world that Phil runs around in. His H index is 50. His I index is 119. and he's been cited over 12,000 times in the scholarship from people in this room. I mean, these are last standard deviation kind of numbers. And in the history of Educational Administration Quarterly, Phil's article is the most cited article in the last 65 years since the journal began. He has the most cited article in the Cambridge Journal of Education. He has the 4th most cited article in the history of Journal of Educational Administration, and the most cited article in school effectiveness and school improvement. These are contributions that most of us wouldn't even think about even putting together. And I think if anyone merits the Lifetime Award for Scholarship and Achievement in Educational Administration, it is Phil Pallinger. I go.
Well, as usually is the case when I come to these meetings in the United States, it's 1:30 in the morning, my time, in Bangkok, Thailand. But when I walked in the room today, it was really very retrospective, introspective, heartwarming to see my longtime colleagues, Dan Duke, Joe Murphy, Kofi Lomatai, Miles Bryant. Kofi and I were at in the doctoral program together at Stanford. Karen Lewis, who I just saw in Stockholm, Sweden last week. So very nice it's like homecoming. I was surprised to receive this award, really, because surprised and proud. I say surprised because I've been outside the United States so long that I haven't really sat in the seats in UCEA or any UCEA organizations, so I just kind of assumed. And I've never even worked in a UCEA institution, so I assumed that I really wouldn't be up for such an award. But I was very proud when I read the description of the award. What really stuck in my mind was the idea of service. And I think as teachers, this is what defines our lives, is service, whether as a scholar or as a teacher. And Joe emphasized my scholarship, but I really view myself more as a teacher at the end of the day. I left the United States on a Fulbright fellowship to Thailand in 1992, and as Ellen Goldring is fond to say, I never came back. But I did, at that time I was working at Vanderbilt, and I had the best colleagues in the world, really. was working with Joe, Ellen Goldring, Bob Krausen, Terry Deal. It was a great department. But I left to work in Thailand and in Southeast Asia because I felt that I could have a greater impact there. And that goes back to the idea of service. And I'll just tell a very short story. In 1992, I did a workshop in Chiang Mai, Thailand, for a group of principals from Church of Christ of Thailand schools. One of the principals, a lady named Ajahn Sumsi, Ajahn is teacher, so that's the title they give you, teacher, and her name Sumsi. At this workshop, I showed them a video explaining the notion of shared leadership through the metaphor of geese. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with this, the idea that geese, when they fly in a V, all of the members of the flock have a shared vision. They all know they have a common destination. And the goose that's in the front is really fighting the wind. And the ones that are behind get a little bit of in the motor racing, the draft effect. They're protected a bit. And then when they fly in the V partly because as they flap their wings, they create an updraft that helps the goose that's behind. But the goose that's the leader in the front gets tired first. So when it gets tired, it just moves to the back where it can kind of rest. not have to fight so hard, and one of the other geese moves up to the front, and it's this idea of shared leadership. Well, several years later, John Sumsey, who was the principal of a school, she brought, I think, 5 of her teacher leaders to the Vanderbilt International Institute for Principals, which I directed every summer with a colleague, Ruth Greenblatt. And so I thought, well, that's very nice. And that's the idea of developing your middle-level leaders. Well, that's all and well is good. And to the year 2000, I left Vanderbilt, moved full-time to my home in Thailand, became dean of a business school, another story. But in 2008, the Secretary of Education asked me to be the lead trainer on a series of 20 workshops delivered to 2,000 principals in every part of Thailand. And I went up to Chiang Mai. The first set of workshops was in Chiang Mai. And so 120 principals in a room like this, and I was doing the training. And during the break, I walk out into the common area. And several of the schools had put exhibitions up. And one of the exhibitions, what do I see? A big picture of geese. So I walk over to this school, to this table, and I talk to the person. Lo and behold, who is the principal? One of the teachers who had come to the training at Vanderbilt back in 1996. And she proudly walks me over, opens up a big book, which is the school book, and in the front of the book is Our Philosophy of Leadership, and a picture of the geese. And this is 15 years after I had done the training with them. And she says to me in Thai, John Philip, Mai Kui Lerm Sing Ti Kun Son, we never forgot what you taught us. So, in closing, one of the teachers that I learned from was a very famous educator from Kentucky, teacher, principal, superintendent by the name of Jesse Stewart. He wrote many books on education. And Jesse, I had the pleasure of meeting him, and one of the things that he said, I believe that good teaching lasts forever, and the teacher is immortal. And I think this is really what I said before, service defines our lives as teachers, and I think this is the thought that I would like to leave you with. Immortal is a very big word, a little too big for me, but the idea that we have a legacy of service is one that works for me. Thank you.
Quality leadership preparation is essential to quality leadership practice. A growing body of research connects how candidates are prepared to career outcomes, leadership practices, and school improvement efforts. Further research shows that exemplary programs have outstanding relevant content, learning experiences, and field experiences. To celebrate exemplary programs and encourage their development, UCEA established an award for exemplary educational leadership preparation. This award complements UCEA's core mission to advance the preparation and practice of educational leaders for the benefit of all children in schools. The award this year will be presented by Diana Pounder.
Before I present this award, I want to say I'm really moved by seeing the recipients of many of these awards. I mean, you should be proud. You're in quite an esteemed and accomplished group to begin with, and to be recognized among your peers is exceptional. And and some of you old dogs that I've known forever, it brought up all kinds of wonderful memories when we were assistant professors. It nearly brought me to tears. So anyway. The Award for Exemplary Educational Leadership Program this is only the second year the award has been given. I've served on the selection committee both years. The pattern I see is we usually have more or less a dozen institutions that are competing for the award, and typically we are looking for what evidence that these preparation programs carry some of the hallmarks of what we know to be effective leadership preparation. But usually there are other distinguishing factors that really make the top one or two institutions stand out from the pack. The others are usually quite solid and good preparation programs, no doubt. But usually there are some distinguishing features that really will get the reviewer's attention. And this year, the recipients, the institutions receiving the two awards are North Carolina State and University of Denver's Ritchie program. And there's a session this afternoon at 5 o'clock, and you can hear from the program faculty themselves to talk about their programs, as well as from the reviewers of what they saw that was impressive about those programs. But let me quickly say, the North Carolina State program, one of the things that caught our attention as being distinctive and kind of separated it from the pack, if you will, was its very creative use of technology to engage students in the learning process. Additionally, its focus on preparing people to serve in high-need geographic regions of North Carolina. And I think that really helped make it a distinctive program that separated it from the others. And with the University of Denver, I think, the University of Denver, one of the things that distinguished the Ritchie program was the fact that they had such an authentic and rich partnership with the local school district. It's very hard to develop those partnerships with that degree of authenticity, and that really was very obvious from the material submitted. So, to accept those awards, Bonnie Fusarelli from North Carolina State and Susan Korach from University of Denver. I might add that there are, in addition to the plaques, there are some healthy cash awards from the Wallace Foundation. All right, here's yours. Okay. Here's yours. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for this award. It really means so much to our institution, and also I'm honored to accept this award on behalf of the University of Denver and the Ritchie program and the Executive Leadership for Successful Schools program. And if you come later this afternoon to the session, you'll hear about how we took the Ritchie program as a prototype and have created the Sustainable and Scalable Executive Leadership for Successful Schools program. And just to recognize the faculty that we have here, Becky McClure with Executive Leadership for Successful Schools, and also Patty Kipp with the Ritchie program. And we're very, very excited that we have so many graduates, and so I'd like everyone and faculty here to stand, and it's really thanks to all of them.
I also would like to just be very brief, because we do have a session this afternoon, but I do want to say a couple of thank yous. Thank you to the selection committee. We are very honored to be selected for this award. And just to give you some context, the Northeast Leadership Academy really is a specialized program. It was stated earlier, we work in high poverty rural areas. And to give you some context, one of the schools that one of our graduates is currently working in had 90% poverty. Only 18% of the kids are at grade level for reading when she took over that school, and in third grade. And in North Carolina's equity finance lawsuit, Leander lawsuit, these schools were declared guilty of academic genocide, because of how deficient they were in preparing kids for life. But these communities in which our students are working are communities that are rich in culture, rich in hope. And they're rich in hope for the future of their kids. And we have an outstanding group of individuals who are willing to take on that challenge and willing to go in and really do the hard work. And the work that we did to develop the program, and I say we, there's a lot of folks, we built on the work that came previously before us, from work Tricia Brown-Farino and Keith Gurley and I did in Kentucky, work that Andy Overstreet did in Northeast North Carolina, work that Matt Militello had done with Kellogg and the Community Learning Exchange and the technology piece that was noted. Most of that all came from Matt Militello's work with technology. Ooh, I did that. I was hoping not to do that. And a lot of other folks who have contributed greatly to the design. But I think that we'll talk later about how we had to stretch some of the organizational, institutional norms, but I think that what I am most proud of is the work that our graduates have done. Today we have 16 of these people who have agreed to take on the challenge, who are still in the preparation program. So can you guys in cohort 4 stand up, please? These are folks that are still in cohort. And these folks are very rigorously selected, and we'll talk about that this afternoon, because we want our energies and our work and your taxpayer dollars, because a lot of that is funded through grants, to really be invested in people who are really committed to making a difference. And they all make a 3-year post-degree commitment to serve in high-needs rural schools. The folks that have graduated previously to them, we also have some folks here, and I do want to recognize Ryan Hurley, whose graduate is featured up here. Ryan, can you stand up a second? In his first year as a principal, increased student performance at his high school by 14%, double digits in the first year, and graduation rate by 4%. That's what his graduates. Larry, who is here, Larry is, as an AP, his school, can you stand up here, Larry? Larry's school as an AP, top 5% for most improvement in the state. So he actually has a great photograph that we'll share later of he put all the middle schools by name on a roll of paper and rolled them out and showed his students where they were. And it took up the entire hallway to show how much they had improved their school and student academic performance. It's really powerful work. And the dynamic duo, as we like to call them, they're both now principals, but last year, Amy Pierce, and with Aaron Swanson being the principal and Amy as the AP, Aaron's cohort 1 and Amy is at cohort 2. That school with 18%, they increased the student performance by 24 points in their first year as a principal. And we all know that most times as a first-year principal, you have a performance dip. 24 points. Can we give them a hand? I mean, that's awesome. That's life-changing work. And as Steve rightly pointed out, and where did my good friend Kathy go? You know, Bill Boyd was the one that put me on this path of this work. Steve rightly pointed out, it's a calling. These are the folks that are answering the calling. It's our job to prepare them for the calling. And it is life-changing. Those kids now have a life chance because they can read in 3rd grade. I would be remiss if I didn't say something about 2 young boys who have sat through 2 hours of an awards banquet. My son Drew, who's 10, and my son JW, who just turned 8 last week. And Matt also, when he was in NC State, also would bring his kids all the time to all the NELA events. And it really keeps us anchored in remembering the kids and what it's all about. And they'll tell us the truth, too. They'll say, Mom, this is boring. You need to teach differently. You need to do something differently. And I would definitely be remiss if I don't mention the next. This last year, the Northeast Leadership Academy has received over $6.7 million in continuing funding, external funding. My co-PI on that and my co-PI in life is Dr. Lance Fezzarelli. And who is just incredibly supportive of the work that all of us are doing. And it's certainly, when we get phone calls and texts and things on a Sunday afternoon or late at night because somebody's having a crisis and they need someone to talk to because they aren't sure how to handle it. And it takes a family, it takes a village, it takes a community, and we are just so proud to be a part of this work, and NC State is just so proud to be doing this. And so I know I've talked a long time, but I'm just proud, and we wanted to celebrate. And so to celebrate, NC State is having a reception tonight, and we hope that you will join us at that reception, and we'll see you tonight having lots of cocktails. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much for coming to our award ceremony today. Before you leave, one thing we'd like to do is, first of all, just have anyone who received an award today, would you please stand so we can recognize you just one more time? I also would like to just point out that the way that these awards work is that we have people who take the time to think thoughtfully about a colleague and nominate them. And then there's another process that goes into place, and that is talking to other people and getting them to write letters of support. And that's how these awards continue. That's how we continue to find those people who we really want to recognize. We know there are so many of you who are sitting here who've been part of that process. So at this time, if you have nominated someone at any point in the career of UCEA Awards and or written a letter of support, would you please stand up so we can thank you for your work? Thank you very much, everyone. That concludes this year's award ceremony.